last month, this is November, yeah, last month when you guys gave gifts to me for pastor appreciation. If you remember, the young people gave me, anybody remember? The adult? What did the young people give to me? A what? iPod. So I have an iPod. So before that, I guess they heard that I wanted to have an iPod. But before I was looking for an iPod. I asked some people here in the church if anybody has an old Samsung phone, because Samsung is not complicated. It's kind of like Windows, Microsoft Windows operating system, because Apple is very complicated, right? Apple is very complicated. iOS, the Apple operating system, is very complicated. See, the Samsung, it's like when you download a song, all you gotta do is copy and paste. So you convert the song into MP3 format, and then, I don't know, the adults don't know what I'm talking about. But all you gotta do is copy and paste, copy and paste. Apple is different. You actually have to download an iTunes program into your computer. Then you convert the song, and then download it to your computer, and then upload it to iTunes, and then download it to your iPod. So it's very complicated, complicated system. But anyway, I figured it out. Took me 10 minutes probably to figure it out how to do it. So I got to download songs, and I'm listening to songs. And guess what songs they are? Bee Gees. Some of them. Okay. Of course, yeah, I started a joke. But of course, I have also Christian songs. So I listen to it, when I'm driving and I'm working, I'm listening to the songs. I probably had like 20 songs. And I finally got tired of all the songs. There was only 20 songs repeating. I got tired, so it's time to download more songs, okay? But I ran into a problem. Now I cannot download songs to my iPod, because every time, you see, when you hook your iPod or your Apple system to your computer, Windows or PC, it's supposed to sync. Okay, it will sync, and then it will transfer the song. Well, all I'm getting is error number 54. And so I did a research and did all that. Still cannot find solution. So I cannot download a song. In other words, to make it simple, my laptop and my iPod are not talking to each other. It's like husband and wife after argument. It's like giving you the silent treatment. So they're not talking to each other. So I'm getting frustrated. There are three things I can do. One, I can give up my iPod. Of course, I don't want to give up my iPod because it's very expensive, and it came from the young people, so it's special to me. Secondly, I can settle with the songs that I already have. 20 songs and repeat it over and over again. Here's the second thing. Or I can continue till I find the solution to the problem and enjoy my iPod, so I can download more songs. There's a saying that life is a journey. When it is a journey, and every journey there is a destination, right? Every journey that you're in, there is a destination. Otherwise, if you're just journeying, you're just lost without destination. And like any other journey, our prayer, when you travel, you pray for a smooth and safe travel until we reach our destination. Until you reach your destination. Nobody who goes on a trip, nobody who goes on a journey, like you drive to Disneyland, you drive to LA, you drive to Oregon, or wherever you drive on a journey or you travel, your prayer will always be, Lord, what? Give us a safe trip or a smooth travel. Nobody, unless there's any one of you here, that will pray that, Lord, in this travel, in this journey, give us a problem. Nobody do that, right? So you will always pray for some kind of safe travel. But the reality is, in this journey called life, sometimes you can hit a snag or even a shipwreck. The reality is, in this life, there will always be trouble. It's not going to be a smooth sailing. It's not going to be bed of roses. You're going to go through trials. You're going to go through some difficulties in life because life goes up and down. It's not always straight and smooth sailing. Sometimes you're down, sometimes you're up. Now in this journey called life, as you go through difficult times, or sometimes you end up on a shipwreck, there are three things that you can do. Number one, first thing you must do is that give up on your goals, give up on the trip, give up on the journey. Two, you settle down where you are shipwrecked and just be battered by the storm until you fall apart, or move on to your destination no matter how difficult it is. What is your choice? What is your choice when you go to this journey called life? Because again, it's not a smooth sailing all the way. Sometimes you hit a snag. Sometimes you shipwreck. Sometimes, these things seems like it's the end of the world. That nothing is happening, nothing good is happening in your life. Again, there are three things you can do. Okay? Give up on your goals. Two, just settle down where you are, where the storm has battered you until you fall apart. Or move on to your destination no matter how difficult it is. Let's read now Acts chapter 27, verse 13 to 26. So follow along as we read. Can we read that? All right. When a gentle south wind began to blow, they saw their opportunity to sow the way anchor and sail along the shore of Crete. Before very long, a wind of hurricane force called the northeaster swept down from the island. The ship was caught by the storm and could not head into the wind, so we gave way to it and were driven along. As we passed to the lee of a small island called Cauda, we were hardly able to make the lifeboat secure. So the men hoisted it aboard. Then they passed ropes under the ship itself to hold it together, because they were afraid they would run aground on the sandbars of Syrtis. They lowered the sea anchor and let the ship be driven along. We took such a violent battering from the storm that the next day they began to throw the cargo overboard. On the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their own hands. When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days and the storm continued raging, we finally gave up all hope of being saved. After they had gone a long time without food, Paul stood up before them and said, "Men, you should have taken my advice not to sail from Crete. Then you would have spared yourselves this damage and loss. But now I urge you to keep up your courage, because not one of you will be lost, only the ship will be destroyed. Last night an angel of God, to whom I belong and whom I serve, stood beside me and said, do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar. And God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you. So keep up your courage, men, for I have faith in God that it will happen, just as he told me. Nevertheless, we must run aground on some island. Do you know who wrote this? Paul? Dr. Luke. Okay, the book of Acts written by Dr. Luke. And so, to give you a little background of what that means, because it's going to be very hard to understand, what we have just read. This talks about the story of the Apostle Paul. After his third missionary journey, he was very eager to go back to Jerusalem. In his mind, there is only one thing. He needed to go to Jerusalem to report to the leaders of the church of his missionary journey. And a lot of people didn't want him to go. And they warned him that please do not go. They even pleaded with him. They cried that Paul, do not go to Jerusalem. And a prophet named Agabus even prophesied and told Paul that if you go to Jerusalem, you are going to be bound, you're going to be arrested, and then handed over to the Gentiles. But Paul said, no, I am going. So he got to Jerusalem. Finally, he got to Jerusalem, and the prophecy that was given by Agabus happened. Days after he arrived in Jerusalem, he went into the temple. Well, the people saw him. An angry Jewish mob dragged him out of the temple and beat him up. If not because of the Roman soldiers, he would have been killed. He would have been killed because he was beaten by the angry Jewish mob, because they really hated him because they preached against the Jewish law and preached the grace of God. So they dragged him and beat him up, but the soldiers, the Roman soldiers, heard about the commotion, and the commander commanded his men to go and see what's going on. And so they found this man, Paul, was beaten and was just ready to die. So they stopped the crowd and arrested Paul. So they arrested him, and they took him to prison. Well, during that time, while they were taking him in, they found out that Paul, because Paul was ready to be beaten by the soldiers, flogged by the soldiers, whipped. But Paul said, is it lawful for you to beat up a Roman citizen? Now the soldiers got scared because they were not supposed to beat up a Roman citizen. But Paul at the same time was a Jew. And so because he mentioned that, now the commander of the army, or the soldier, was now obligated to make sure that Paul was safe, because he was a Roman citizen. So if he released him, he will be killed by the angry mob. At the same time, he cannot keep him because he did not violate any Roman law. And so the solution was that to bring him into trial. And so the first trial that he was going to face was against the Sanhedrin, or the 70 elders of Israel. So he was going to be tried under the Jewish law. Now Paul knew that his trials, if it is going to be in the court, the Jewish court, before the Sanhedrin, that he's not going to receive any fair trial. So he appealed, and he and he chose to be tried under the Roman law. And that makes only one thing: he has to be taken to Rome to face Caesar, or to face the law of the Romans. So we pick up the story now in Acts chapter 27. Together with the different other prisoners, Paul was taken on a ship from traveling the Mediterranean and go through all the way to Rome, Italy. And so this is now during this travel, travel that he is a prisoner, that he was on the ship, that the storm came blowing and beating on the ship. But again, for Paul, there is only one thing in his mind: for him to go to Rome so that he could be set free. Because he had to go through trials so that he could be set free. So there's one thing in his mind on this journey: he wants to get to Rome. Everybody say, I'm going to Rome. I'm going to Australia. No matter what. So there was only one thing. Okay? There was only one thing in his mind. He was a very busy man. He was a missionary, and his heart was on the mission. He wants to be in the mission field, preaching the gospel, preaching the word of God, preaching about the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ. That's what he was. But now he was bound. He was a prisoner. So one thing that he needs to get to is to get to Rome so that he could be set free. But during this journey, life throws him a curveball. There was no smooth sailing to Rome. The ship was battered by a violent storm until they had a shipwreck. Let's read again chapter 27, 15 to 20. Let's repeat that. Next frame 3 to 6. All right? Let's read that again. The ship was caught by the storm and could not head into the wind. So we gave way to it and were driven along. As we passed to the lee of a small island called Cauda, we were hardly able to make the lifeboat secure. So the men hoisted it aboard. Then they passed ropes under the ship itself to hold it together, because they were afraid they would run aground on the sandbars of Syrtis. They lowered the sea anchor and let the ship be driven along. We took such a violent battering from the storm that the next day they began to throw the cargo overboard. On the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their own hands. So, let me give you three things that are happening here. First, the initial reaction when they faced storm, when the ship was battered by a very violent storm, the initial reaction was to secure the ship. The initial reaction is to make sure that the ship is not going to fall apart. So they tied ropes. Okay, they tied ropes so that to keep the ship apart, to keep the ship from falling apart. They tied rope. They secured the lifeboat. They tried everything they knew to keep the ship from falling apart. The ship that was going to take them to Rome. And in this life, in this journey we call life, when we face storm, when we are battered by a storm, when we are battered by trials, when we are battered with difficult times, the very first reaction we have is to keep things together the best way we know. But sometimes to no avail. Sometimes the storm seems to be stronger than our ship. Sometimes the storm just so strong that we could not keep our ship. So the next thing that we do is that, you look at this, they lower the anchor. The reason that they lowered the anchor was to keep the ship from being blown away, but it also means that they were not moving forward. Okay? Your plans, your future is not going to move forward if you anchor. So when the storms of life come through, when we are battered by the storms of life, again, the initial reaction is that to keep everything safe, we fight back. But sometimes the storm is just so strong that we, no matter how much we do, it just doesn't help. So the next thing to do is to anchor. Is to anchor so that you will not be blown away. But when they anchored, it also meant another thing, is that the ship was not moving forward towards Rome. They were stuck. And sometimes that's what happened in our lives. We cannot move forward towards our goal. We cannot move forward. So we cannot achieve our dreams. And we anchor. We settle down. We just give up. We just give up because here they gave up and have lost hope. See, and they began to throw cargo overboard. The cargo, see, the cargo was part of their food supply. They started throwing it overboard. And in this life, this journey we call life, sometimes when we anchor, when we give up, we start throwing overboard the cargo that we have. The hopes that we have, we start throwing them overboard. The dreams that we have, we start giving them up. The destinations, we lose track of, we could no longer see the destination because we just lose hope. We give up. So that the people here that was manning the ship, they just gave up. We're not going anywhere. And again, sometimes as we travel in this journey called life, when we are battered by the storm, we give up. We just anchor. That's it. We'll stay here. We're not going anywhere. I lost everything, so I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to school anymore. I'm not going to work anymore because I lost everything. So we anchor, we settle what the storm have left us. We just settle down. And another thing that they did over here is that they threw overboard all the ship's tackle. The ship's tackle is the ropes and the connectors that hold the sail. So in other words, they gave up sailing. They didn't want to go to Rome anymore. They just gave up. Sometimes that's what happened in this life. We no longer just don't want to travel anymore. We just stop where we are because we just been battered by the storm. We're staying where the storm have destroyed us. We start dumping our hope for the future. We start dumping our hopes for a better future. The storm brought darkness that you could no longer see beyond the horizon. So you settle down what the storm have left you. Look at verse 20. Verse 20 says this. Can you have that? Neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and the storm continued raging. We finally gave up all hope of being saved. How many of us have experienced that in this life when you're battered by a storm? You just give up hope. You don't want to go to work. You just give up hope. And you just lower your sail. You just throw everything overboard. And sometimes the sun doesn't shine. You just give up hope. But the next verse, 21, 22, 26, is the turning point. Because maybe some of us this time are in that situation. You have been battered by the storm. You have been beaten, and you just give up hope. You lowered your sail, you dump everything overboard, and you just settle where you are. You just accept what the storm have left you. Verse 21 will tell us what to do. This is the turning point now of the situation that Paul had gone through. Verse 21. Let's read that. After they had gone a long time without food, city over, they throw everything. Now they don't have food. Paul stood up before them and said, "Men, you should have taken my advice not to sail from Crete. Then you would have spared yourself this damage and loss." This is Paul who stood up, spoke to the people who have lost hope, spoke to the people who have given up, spoke to the people that have stopped sailing to Rome. Paul stood up and said, "Man, you should have listened to what I have told you." Now wait a minute. What did Paul knew about sailing? He was a lawyer. He was a missionary. He was not a mariner. He did not work in a ship. But somehow he said, "Man, you should have listened to me." How many of us do that to our kids and we don't listen? Right? You tell your kids, "Don't do that," but they do it anyway. And then we tell them, "You don't listen." So, I remember my sister used to beat me up. Our oldest sister. There were 3 older sisters and 4 boys. There were 7 of us, and we were the younger ones. So the older ones, the sisters, we did not really grow up with them. Just like, they were different age. So they used to beat up the boys. It's like Sheila and Marky. Every time she told us, she used to tell us, "Listen to me," and if we don't listen, man, our ears get pulled all the time. "You should have listened to me." So that's what Paul is saying. So number one thing that you must do, whenever you are in a situation, when you are in a very difficult situation because you have been battered by the storm, you have been beaten and you just gave up hope and you have lowered your sail and you dump all your hopes, you dump all your dreams overboard, the very first thing you should do is that you should have someone in your life that you hang around with that has a deeper wisdom and spiritual insight. Come on now. Very first thing that you must do is this. Hang around. Reach out to somebody with a deeper wisdom and spiritual insight who can give you some directions in this life. Hang out with people that are just like me. Only 2 people agree. All right, anybody else you can hang around with somebody else. That's fine. Hang out with somebody with deep wisdom and spiritual insight. Hang out with people that will inspire and encourage you to move on. Do not hang out with people that tell you that's good for you because you did not listen. Isn't that what sometimes we do? Good for you. You did not listen to me. No, look for somebody. Look for people that can inspire you in the midst of your storm. Look for that somebody who will give you insight. Well, look for that somebody who will walk with you, who will hold your hands and, come on, my friend, let's go. Let's move on. Let us not settle here. So Paul was the one who have encouraged and inspired them. He said, "Man, you should have listened to me." Now, there's another thing that we must do. I know I mentioned earlier that they threw their cargo overboard. They threw their hopes and their dreams overboard. But mariners normally do that when there's a storm. Because their load is so heavy, they just have to dump some of it. Sometimes when we go through storm, or we have difficulty sailing through the storm because we have so much load in us. Right? Sometimes you see we are financially in a very strong storm. And we give a Lord, we do not have anything to pay. We do not have money to pay for our rent. Well, maybe you need to dump some of your credit card. Right? Maybe you need to dump some of your shopping time. Or, as parents, our dream for our children to have a better education and to have a better life, but most of all, as Christians, our dream as parents is for our children to serve God with all their heart. That is our prayer, that when they grow up, and no parents will say here that when my children grow up, I want them to be drug addicts. Right? We don't want them. We want them to have a better life, especially in their Christian walk. We want them to have a very strong Christian walk. We want them to go to church every Sunday. But sometimes we overload our children with so many extracurricular activities. I'm not saying you don't do it. And sometimes we even teach our children that extracurricular activities is much important than church. And then when they grow up, we wonder why they don't come to church. We wonder why they don't come to the youth service. I'm not saying that it is not important to have an extracurricular activity. I'm talking about overloading. I'm talking about priorities. But sometimes it gets so heavy that we could no longer travel, we could no longer journey towards the destination where God wants us to be. Maybe we need to dump some of those. So, that's the second thing. First thing is that hang out with people that can give you advice with deep spiritual insight and deep wisdom. Here's another thing. In the midst of the storm, darkness and hopelessness and discouragement, Paul continued to trust God in his plan for his life. Hang on to God. The greatest tragedy was not the storm. The greatest tragedy is to run from God at the height of the storm. The greatest tragedy is not how the storm had battered you. It is not. The greatest tragedy is not because the storm have left you bankrupt or so discouraged. But the greatest tragedy could be is that when you run away from God in the midst of the storm. Paul continued to trust God, and this is what we need to do. Verse 25. Still verse 25. So, keep up your courage, men, for I have faith in God. Let's repeat that. I have faith in God that it will happen just as He told me. Okay? Go back to verse 24. Here. Last night, an angel of the Lord, angel of the God whom I belong, he said, whom I belong. He did not just believe, he belonged. Whom I serve, he also served. Stood beside me and said, do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar. Leave it there. What does this mean? See, Paul trusted God. And this is a very important part in our walk, in our journey called life. This is the most important thing. Paul said he trusted God. And because he trusted God, God gave him a vision through an angel's who spoke to him. And the angel said this, "Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar." What does that mean? What does that mean? The angel said, "Paul, do not worry. Do not worry about this storm. Yes, the ship is broken," because they have to take another ship. The ship is broken. Yes, the storm has battered you. Yes, you guys are hungry. Yes, people have lost hope. But Paul, let me tell you something. You are going to face Caesar. What does that mean? Where's Caesar? In Rome. God is saying that, yes, Paul, your journey, your destination is Rome. Yes, you are being battered by the storm. Yes, you have lost courage. Yes, you have lost hope. But you are going to Rome. Are you going to Rome? See, what is your dream? What is it that you ask God? What is your destination? This life, sometimes we suffer difficult times. We suffer loss. We're discouraged. But God is saying, you are going to make it. You've got to trust God. You've got to say, yes, I am being battered by the storm right now. Yes, I am discouraged right now. Say, yes, I am shipwrecked right now. But my faith in God is telling me I'm going to Rome. Yes, you are going to Rome, and you have to declare that. Stop declaring that, oh man, I'm just a loser. Stop declaring negative things into your life. You've got to declare that you are going to make it. You are going to Rome. For you students, your grade right now is not that good, but God is faithful and say, I am going to graduate. Oh, nobody wants to graduate? I am going to Rome. See, if you did. This is very true. Let me tell you, and probably he heard me said this so many times. When as a family you want to take a vacation, and every time somebody asks you, when are you going to take a vacation? When are you going to Disneyland? When are you going to the Philippines? When are you going to Australia? Your answer will be always, if we have money. Right? Right? That's the always answer. We don't have money right now. We're planning in 2 years, if we save enough money, we're going to Boracay. But it doesn't happen in 2 years. And you're always planning. And then after 2 years, you plan again. After 2 years, you plan again. It's always about planning, never happen. Right? It's always like, if you have money. After the kids graduate. After we pay off our debt. It never happened. If it happens, probably after 10 years. I'll tell you what to do. First of all, you say, I'm going to Boracay. Boracay, if you don't know, is a tourist destination in the Philippines. I'm going to Disneyland. What are you going to win? What are you going to do that you win now? I'm going to Disneyland. I'm going to Australia. You want to go to Australia? You want to go on a vacation? This is one thing I want you to do. First of all, declare it. Then set a date. Because when you set a date, if you do not set a date, you always say, if I have money, the money will never come. But if you set a date and you're going to take a vacation on that date, the money will show up. Isn't it? That's very true. That is very true. God said, you must stand before Caesar. This was God's way of saying, Paul, you're going to Rome. In spite of a broken spirit and a broken ship, you're going to Rome. You're going to achieve your goals and dreams because God's plan for you is much stronger than the storm you are facing right now. You are going to the destination. See, God's plan for you is not to destroy you. In Jeremiah, God said, my plans for you are good. I have a good plan for you, not to destroy you. I have good plans. So God has a good plan for us. God has a good destination for us. That is God's plan. See, our lives are not anchored in the storm. I want you to keep this in mind. Your life, you're going to Rome, you're going to Australia, you're going to graduate, your life is going to get better because your life is not anchored in the storm. Your life is anchored in God's plan for your life. Do not give up. Know this. If you are in the storm right now, Jesus is walking with you. You are not alone. Keep that in mind. It would have been so easy for Paul to say and to complain, Lord, I worked so hard for you. I have been a missionary. I have planted churches all over Europe, and I wanted to go back home to Jerusalem, and all I got was I got beaten up. I got arrested, Lord. And now, I'm going to Rome, and now this storm. That's it, Lord. I quit. I give up. I'm not going to serve you anymore. I just give up. I will let down my sail. I will throw everything, my hopes, my future, and my dreams. I'm just going to throw them overboard, and I will just settle here broken. Paul could have complained that. It would have been so easy for him to complain. But no. He kept on trusting God. My message to you today, keep on trusting God. Do not give up hope. Declare it. You're going to Rome. You're going to Australia. You're going to graduate. All these dreams that you have, you're going to do it. You are going to achieve it. Do not give up. If you have been battered by some kind of sickness, God has a better plan for you. Do not settle down. Don't give up. Every time you walk in the storms of life, I want you to remember this. You are not alone. God is with you. It doesn't matter how strong the storm comes. It doesn't matter how discouraged you are. God is faithful. He walks with you. You probably heard this story about the footprints in the sand. I'm going to read this again. It's on ready. It says, one night, I dreamed I was walking along the beach with the Lord. Well, at least at the beach, right? It's not bad. It's not the desert. Waikiki. No, not Waikiki, too wicked. Boracay. Many scenes from my life flashed across the sky. In each scene, I noticed footprints in the sand. Sometimes there were two sets of footprints, other times there was only one. This bothered me because I noticed that during the low period of my life, when I was suffering from anguish, sorrow, or defeat, I could see only one set of footprints. So I said to the Lord, You promised me, Lord, that if I followed you, you would walk with me always. But I have noticed that during the most trying periods of my life, there has only been one set of footprints in the sand. Why? When I needed you most, you have not been there for me. The Lord replied, the years when you have seen only one set of footprints, my child, it is when I care. Beautiful. Beautiful. The Lord is with you. He has never given up on you. No matter how much you have given up, God never give up on you. And always remember this. Your life is not an anchor in the storm. Your life is not anchored on the ship. Your life is anchored in God's plan.